Welcome back to another episode of Sound Powers Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I will be reviewing Donnie Brasco. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. An FBI undercover agent infiltrates the mob and finds himself identifying more with the mafia life at the expense of his regular one. So let's begin with my first pro. First, this movie was based on a real undercover agent that did infiltrate the mob and got lots of information to bring them down. So it's based on real facts, but some are stretched a little bit more than others. Nonetheless, this is a fairly accurate description of what went down during the investigation or during this sting operation. But like anything based on something that is real, there will be people who claim to know what really happened, but for entertainment purposes, this version will do just fine. Next point, the actors. Of course, we have Michael Madsen. People will know who he is if you just name any of the Quentin Tarantino movies. Next, we have Anne Heche, who plays Donnie's wife. She did an excellent job, by the way. She did get me mad at how she couldn't understand why Donnie couldn't tell her about the undercover job he was doing. So since she got under my skin, it actually meant that she did her role and played her character correct. And then we have Bruno Kirby, who played Nicky, and it's up for debate if he's trying to do the Joe Pesci version from Goodfellas or if it's basically his own persona or his own character that he was doing, because Joe Pesci was also in the running for Nicky, but Bruno took the role. Then we have Al Pacino and Johnny Depp. Forget about it. They were amazing together. Even a simple conversation had me laughing or super interested in what they had to say to each other. Al did play Lefty as if the character was older and getting forgetful at some times, but sometimes he did play the role as if he felt he was being hurt or betrayed by Donnie. But at the same time, he was fine with it and he just let it go. Their roles to me seemed like Lefty found a son that he wanted in Donnie, since his real son was, as he put it, a junkie. Also, a face that I was surprised to see in the film was that of Paul Giamatti, just there playing attack and asking Donnie what forget about it actually meant. One of the best scenes in the movie, if you ask me. Next, the characters in the movie. Take Lefty, for example. He was sold to us during the pre-story of the movie as a high-power mobster, that he knew people and he was well connected. But once Donnie got inside the mob, Lefty was made to look like he was always short on money. He had family issues. He didn't like that others would benefit off his help instead of him getting promoted inside the mob. But it really became evident when he said he owned a boat, but then he got rid of it. But if he was able to get it back, he would just sell east, west, north, south to places where nobody can find him. He wasn't saying this as he was trying to evade the law. He was saying he wanted this because he was tired of the mob life and that it wasn't getting him anywhere. And he just wanted to escape and be happy for a while. Start all over. This is what motivated Donnie to get him the money to get the boat and operate it to him at the end of the movie. Because he felt that this guy was not really that bad, even though Lefty did do some bad things, but this guy did not deserve what was coming to him. But Lefty is still old school, so he said no. He chose this life and he was going to be taken out by this life that he chose. Same thing goes for Donnie. The job was getting to him at some points. He really believed that the mob was his actual life. He was getting too deep into it for his own good. Even the real Donnie, whose real name is Joe, said that he was so convincing to the mob that he found out that the mob was actually going to recommend him once the books opened up. So you can see that he was getting too deep into it. But we also see that Donnie's family was his anchor that kept him from drifting too far into the mob to the point that he could not come back. And every time he comes back to his house, his daughters are the ones that basically ground him and keep him close enough so he can actually come back. But he eventually does come back, but not before trying to help Lefty. Next point is the palette tone of the film. I don't know why, but the color palette they chose to go with really sold me on the scenery, especially when it was New York versus Miami. The tones really fit. We saw the New York kind of dim blue versus Miami, which is basically just bright colors. Also, when they try to distinguish between the mob factions or the mob families or groups, for example, Sonny Black's group had a certain color, Sonny Red, all the way to Donnie and Lefty. It really set the tone for the scenes, and some of the scenes really stood out because of those colors, because you knew who you were dealing with, but just based on the colors that you saw on the screen. Now moving on to my cons. I will be the first to say the movie was a bit slow compared to what people consider mob movies nowadays, full of drama and cunning, elaborate backstabbing schemes involved in those movies. But the only way I can convince people that this is real is how they were unhinged. 1 second they're walking into a restaurant to be seated, next they're beating up the waiter in the restroom and he's all bloody to the point that he couldn't get up. Or the scene where they take out Sonny Red and the movie shows them cutting them up after they shot them like a butcher. This was really bloody, and even the real Joe says that that's actually how the mob behaved. They were on edge at all times. Any comment that somebody said would trigger them. But if you really want to watch drama, I would suggest for you go watch a series based on real events that half of it is probably made up just for drama. Next, I really did not like how the movie ended, since afterwards I went back to read up on the real Lefty and found out that he was not actually taken out, but instead he was arrested, sent to jail, and once he served his sentence, got out and died 2 years later due to cancer. I mean, we really did not see him get killed, but the shot that we heard at the end made our minds reach a certain conclusion. So I would have liked it if I saw him taking all his belongings off like we did and leaving them open there, knowing that he was probably going to go get killed. But as he's walking there, he gets intercepted by the FBI, gets arrested, goes to jail, and then for a little extra kick, what if Donnie / Joe goes to jail to visit him, and they begin arguing, calling each other cocksuckers. But eventually they end up talking about boats and they calm down, and then after that they're trying to say their goodbyes as the camera pans out of the jail and over the city, just a little boat to wrap up the whole thing, and then you add the footnotes at the end of the movie. So my grade for this movie is going to be a solid 7 out of 10. I think people who are fans of mafia movies, or maybe just fans of Al Pacino or Johnny Depp, will really enjoy this movie. Like I said, nothing over the top, but just based on a real story or real event. So that does it for this review of Donnie Brasco. Please join us next time where we're going to review As Good As It Gets.
Where was my little baby? Where was my baby? In the basement garbage bin eating diaper shit.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.